So the only way to really get a bespoke solution for an entrepreneur and to get to the bottom of what they really need is to do an assessment up front, to understand the gaps in the business, and then once the assessment's done, to then build a bespoke plan to actually get them to the real solutions. We do this in a very structured way. We set up a curriculum, we call it a program curriculum, and the curriculum is shared with the entrepreneur right in the beginning, and they agree on the gaps that should be developed, and we then just follow the plan very painstakingly in a structured fashion and tick the boxes one by one until the gaps are closed. In my mind, that's the only way you get real traction in any program, is to do it step by step, very structured and very planned. So in any developmental program, whether it is with entrepreneurs at later or earlier stages of their business, the one very important thing to always remember is that the actual program consists of so many different role players, from mentors to coaches to financial gurus, literally to the entrepreneurs themselves, programmatic approaches. So there is a lot of stakeholders involved in a program like this. And what we have learned, the best way to get proper team cohesion in a program such as this is to have regular meetings, clear communication up front on what the program entails, regular checkpoints, flash reporting every week to make sure that everybody's on board with and on top of what's happening, and then really organized and very succinct sessions with the entrepreneurs, whether one-on-one with mentors or whether as a group. But team cohesion really makes the difference between a program being successful or not. So as part of the program approach, what we do when we actually establish the gaps in every business, we then make sure that there are some basic topics that we cover regardless of the gaps in the business. Some of these basics are strategy, business model canvas, finance and pricing, people issues, technology, product issues, legal, etc., etc. And part of that is the very important first session, and that's the session of strategy. And in the strategy session, really what we determine is what the strategic approach should be, what the vision for the business should be, what the value proposition should be, the key objectives and how to implement them. And part of that session, we make sure that the entrepreneurs complete a SWOT analysis. There's a business model canvas session that also ensures that they get a really good understanding of the approach and the vision ahead for their business. And we then take that first session and build every single other component of the rest of the program based on that. So the program is left by the entrepreneur with a clear understanding of the vision for the business, of the strategic approach for the business, all the way into the most critical tactical approaches that they have to take based on the gaps identified. So the question around business model is always a very interesting one to get a response to, depending on who you ask the question to. And the reality about optimizing business model is not just whether the business model makes sense and whether financially it's a good commercial viability, but business model is so much more than that. It's about the culture of the business. It's about the interaction of the employees in the business. It's about how a business would treat their clients, how they would treat their suppliers. It is much broader than the actual business model and the approach, which really comes out of the strategy anyway. So for us to make sure that the entrepreneurs on the Elevator 3.0 program truly optimize their business model, we cover both the soft and the hard issues as part of the business model session. And we then go into the session with a lot of detail, getting them to understand the business model, getting them to understand who the customers are, who the suppliers are, who the partners are that they need to work with, how they would make money, what the risks are, etc., etc. And by taking both the soft and the hard answers, we then get them to build a business model approach that will stand the test of time, and that won't just be seen as a tick box exercise to get the business model done. So the Elevator 3.0 program with E Squared is particularly interesting to work on for a number of reasons. But one of the key points that really differentiates this program, in my perspective, is the fact that the three key issues for entrepreneurs are always access to funding, access to markets, and then access to information. And what's very interesting is, depending on the research and the country in particular, it always rotates between either access to funding or access to markets, which is the most prioritized for an entrepreneur to work with. And on this particular program, both access to markets and access to funding are actually tackled equally. So on the access to market side, we have an approach to get the business ready for market access, and there's a lot of business process involved, strategy, etc. But on the access to funding component, the business actually works on the program full-time in the program with a financial advisor. We ensure that they get their books in order, we ensure that they get compliant, and then they get assessed on how funding ready they are. And then where there are gaps, these gaps get closed so that an all-encompassing solution can be provided, where the business is actually not only market ready, but also funding ready. And whether it is for a first tranche of funding or later tranches of funding, we also explain to them the whole funding cycle from angel funding all the way through to key investments. And when the businesses leave the program, they have a much better understanding of what it means to be both funding and market ready to have exponential growth and a very successful business.